Are we on the highway to climate hell? The United Nations Secretary General warns the world is heading in that direction. Dale Hurd reports that climate change alarmists once again took center stage at a global climate summit. This time, they gathered in the Middle East.
The pyramids were lit up to welcome world leaders to the UN Climate Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, in what almost looked like an end-of-the-world trade show sponsored by Coca-Cola and other big corporations. This summit began as many others, with the dire warning that life on Earth will end if climate change isn't stopped.
The clock is ticking. We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing. We are on a highway to climate hell with our foot still on the accelerator.
One has to wonder, however, whether this doomsday rhetoric can be trusted. After all, 50 years ago, the UN warned mankind had only 10 years to stop the catastrophe. 40 years ago, the UN said we have until the year 2000 to prevent the equivalent of a nuclear holocaust. And 15 years ago, the UN warned that if climate change wasn't stopped by 2012, it would be too late. The world has not only failed to end, CO2 emissions are 50% higher than they were 20 years ago. With even the UN now admitting its policies have failed, some want to throw even more money at the problem. After 26 previous summits and trillions spent on the climate, the UN still doesn't have a working blueprint to lower the Earth's temperature. For this 27th attempt, U.S. climate envoy John Kerry says what's needed are trillions of dollars more. There's also support for hundreds of billions in so-called loss and damage payments to poor nations, basically climate reparations. Climate activist Greta Thunberg denounced this summit as a scam and greenwashing. That's when a company fakes its environmental commitment. But climate skeptic and author Mark Morano at this summit told us he saw more corporate sponsors than ever before.
They've been completely corporatized. The main partners this year are everyone from Microsoft, Google, to IBM, and all these big corporate conglomerates that come in. Meta is here, the parent company of Facebook.
Al Gore was there pushing his new Climate Trace Initiative, a global network that tracks down carbon emitters so they can be fined or shut down.
For any nation that requests our assistance, Climate Trace can provide all of the assistance necessary, a complete inventory of all of the emissions from every major point source in its territory every year for free.
But with the UN itself admitting failure, the biggest impact of climate policies has been a worldwide energy crisis through an over-reliance on green energy. And all the failed prophecies of doom over the years don't seem to matter.
If you're Al Gore, if you're John Kerry, if you're any climate activist, how do you walk this back? Okay, we've been doing this for 30 years, and these people have come out with the most dire warnings, by the way, none of which have turned out to be true. How do they ever walk it back? They can't. They just have to keep it going.
CBN News senior international correspondent Dale Hurd joins us with more. Dale, if these were Christians making prophecies over the past 30 years and none of the prophecies came true, people would stop listening to them. So why are people still listening to Al Gore, John Kerry, and other climate prophets of doom?
Yeah, it's kind of like a dead faith that's unwinding, but it still has credence with some people. You know, this issue is like dead last among voters' concerns. And yet when you look at do people believe in climate change, the numbers are still, to me, alarmingly high. I think partly because people just don't want to get hassled about it or they haven't looked into it. And so it just kind of keeps rolling down, going down the street, you know, like a junk car about to break down, but it hasn't broken down yet.
And in your story, you report about the corporations that sponsored the climate summit. So why are so many companies jumping on the climate change bandwagon, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I called it an end-of-the-world trade show because, I mean, to me, it's hilarious that, you know, they're talking about the end of life on Earth as we know it, sponsored by Coca-Cola. But there's money to be made. And we have ESG in the boardroom, which is environmental, social, and governance policies that are being foisted on companies by board members, shareholders, because not enough good people are getting involved in corporate governance, in my opinion. And so you get these policies forced on corporations, and they figured out a way to make money out of it.
Okay, on to the effect of these policies. A blast of cold weather is expected for Europe before the end of the year, but a warmer winter is predicted. So still, many European countries are facing an energy crisis. To what extent are climate policies responsible?
Completely responsible. Can we put this to rest about the war? Let's look at what Europe has done over the last 20, 25 years. Europe really only has coal for a natural resource. Well, that was shut down years ago. And then nuclear. France was a leader in nuclear, and they were sharing it with other countries. Now they're knocking down their nuclear plants. Now they've mothballed some, and they're trying to bring those back online and they're burning more coal than they have in years. They mothballed some of those, and they've brought those back online. This is all about their policies. And can I just say, these people did not know what they're doing. In the same way that the Biden White House does not know what it's doing. They're like kids that live in their parents' basement and think they know about life. They think they know about energy and energy policy, and they don't. And that's why they've made such a mess of things.
Yeah, as they jet around the world and use up the carbon there. Well, you've been doing these reports for many years now. So where do you see all of this heading? A more common sense approach to climate change, or more extremism and energy hardship?
You know, it keeps going. And so even in this country, which is so energy rich, I think we're headed toward a breakdown. Perhaps not as bad as Europe, but they're trying to kill the fossil fuel industry in this country. And at some point, it's going to reach a crisis because wind and solar don't cut it. We wish they did, but they don't. And so I'm afraid we're headed toward a breakdown and some cold winters.
Thank you, Dale, for providing those insights.
Sure.